Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amy and I am on a financial freedom journey with my family. I share all about that and more on my channel. And something that I've been doing this year is also sharing some other real life budgets on my channel. And today we're gonna be going over Heather's budget intake. All right, so Heather is 33 and she lives in Pennsylvania. She is a project manager and she's single and she makes about $95,000 per year. Her short-term financial goals and priorities are to pay off debt, build up her emergency fund, and also save up for a new car. She does have two different types of debt. She has $9,000 in credit cards that she has consolidated into a 0% card. And then she also has a $3,000 personal loan that is at an 8% interest rate right now. She has $5,000 in savings and about $80,000 currently in investments. Her biggest financial struggles are eating out, saving, and sticking to her budget, which we will talk about all of those when we go through her budget. But I think all of us can agree we all struggle a lot with eating out. I know I do, if you guys have watched my channel for a while. And it can be really difficult to stick to a budget. And I think that the things that I see when I am looking at these financial struggles in these reviews is if somebody is saying that they are having trouble sticking to a budget, which it has been pretty common, I think that your budget is probably a little bit too restrictive, and I will talk about that as well when we go through her budget. So just something to keep in mind if you feel like you are really struggling to stick to your budget is probably not realistic and you need to go look at it again. I know I have definitely been in that situation where I, of course, have an ideal budget. I would love to not spend $1,000 a month on groceries, but unfortunately for me, that is my reality. And so I think it's really important when we're doing these type of things or doing our budgets to make sure that they're realistic, and you're not going to get it on the first try, right? Like it might take you a few months of budgeting to really get a feel for what is realistic and also what works for you. So again, we will talk through that as we go through her budget in a few minutes. And some of her long-term financial goals, she would love to eventually be able to max out her retirement accounts, and she would also like to be debt-free. So let's go ahead and go over Heather's debt overview, and then we will go over her budget. All right, so as we just discussed, Heather does have two main debts. She has credit cards that she has consolidated into a 0% interest card, and then she also has a personal loan. So for this situation, I would recommend starting with the credit cards because we know with the consolidation loans or 0% interest transfers, often those are only temporary. Now, she didn't say exactly when this expires, but we want to be conscious of making sure that we're paying this off before the 0% expires. Otherwise, you could be owing a lot of interest on this amount. So I would definitely start with the credit cards. Even though they are at 0%, you can knock them out relatively quickly because they aren't accruing interest. And then for now, I would pay the minimum on the personal loan and I would save that to the end. Now, typically I am a fan of the debt snowball. That's usually what I typically recommend, especially for people who are beginning paying off debt. But in this scenario, because of these interest rates on the credit cards, I would always pretty much start with credit cards in most scenarios. So I would definitely recommend taking care of the credit cards. Now, she did not list exactly what the minimum payments are here, and so we'll talk a little bit about that in the budget, but just being mindful that we're making sure we're keeping track of the minimum payments because again, while we're going to be focusing on the credit cards, we are going to be wanting to still obviously pay the minimum payment on the personal loan. Now, I'm not sure if she just did some consolidation. It kind of seems maybe like she had just done some consolidation, so maybe she doesn't know what the minimums are yet, but just something to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and go over Heather's budget. All right, so this is the budget that Heather had provided me. So where I have some of my highlight is things that I either am questioning or wanting to point out. So let's just go through this from top to bottom. So Heather brings home $5,200 a month from her job. She does put 6% into her 401k, which I think is great. I'm assuming and hoping that there is a match for that as well. So I think that's a great start. She also pays health insurance and her HSA out of this account, which is great. So again, she is bringing home $5,200 a month, which is a great amount of income. So great job, Heather. She did also reference in her form that she does have some side hustle income opportunities that are about $3,000 to $4,000 a year. So definitely keeping that in mind as we go through this, that how I handle side hustle income for myself personally and what we did while we were on a debt payoff journey is we actually used all of our side hustle income to add to our debt snowball. So I would highly recommend that, and we'll talk about that as we get down farther in the budget. But I would definitely recommend, don't count on that income, but when you do receive it, try to use it for whatever financial goal you're working on. So down to Heather's fixed expenses. She does have a mortgage payment of $2,000, utilities for $200. She donates $200 a month. She pays $60 for Wi-Fi, $35 for security, $125 for car insurance, $50 for her phone, and $50 in subscriptions. Now, I don't see a ton of room to cut things here. This is a pretty bare bones budget in my opinion. Obviously, I personally donate money. I would never tell somebody not to do that. So I think that that's totally fine to have in here. Again, mortgage, utilities seem pretty reasonable. Wi-Fi, again, that's what we pay. So I feel like that's pretty reasonable. Car insurance, $125. I'm assuming this is just for one car since she is single. I would maybe shop around because you may be able to find a slightly better rate for one vehicle. So definitely keep that in mind. And another thing that we've done for a really long time is we pay biannually. So we pay twice a year for our car insurance, and that does save us a lot of money as well. So if you can consolidate that to maybe like a twice a year bill instead, that might also save you a little bit of money as well. And you could create a sinking fund for that as well if you want to go that route. Phone for $50, again, feel like that's pretty reasonable. Personally, my husband and I use Mint Mobile, which is $30 a month for unlimited everything. We've used them for multiple years at this point. So if you are looking to save a little bit, Mint Mobile is a great way to go. They have a coverage map on their website. You can go take a look and see if you would have good coverage in your area. Personally, I thought the switch was great and definitely regret not doing it sooner because we could have been saving quite a bit of money on our cell phones. So check that out. And then $50 for subscriptions. She doesn't list these out separately, so I'm not exactly sure what these are, but something that maybe could be cut down. I know I talk about it a lot in these videos, but something that my husband and I personally do is we rotate our subscriptions. So like 1 month we might have Hulu, and then the next one we might have Netflix, or maybe there's months where we don't have any at all. Actually, usually in the summertime we don't have any because we're not really home as much. So rotating subscriptions might be a good way for you to go, especially as a single person. Maybe getting Netflix for 1 month and watching like everything that you want to watch on there and then switching can be a way to not have to pay for multiple all at once. So something to consider, but again, even with those changes, like not going to make a huge impact on the budget. So just something to consider if you're trying to cut a little bit out. And two things that I added here is, again, we don't have the minimum payments yet for these two bills. So that will be something that you'll need to add in here and keep in mind. So total current fixed expenses is $27.20 and our total remaining is $24.80. So moving up to variable expenses. So she did have 3 variable expenses that she listed in her budget that she had provided me. $400 for food, $60 for gas, and $100 for personal spending. And I added a highlight in this whole area because one of the things that she said she struggled with was sticking to a budget. And again, like I said in the beginning of the video, part of the reason for that may be because your budget is too restrictive. So take a look at the last 3 to 6 months of expenses and really pay attention to what you actually spent. You may need to increase some of these categories or even add more categories. So maybe you need to add like a beauty category because you spent, $100 last month on getting your nails done or beauty items. Like that is something that you should be reflecting in your budget, and it's okay to add. It's okay to add. I think that $560 in variable expenses is relatively low in my opinion for a single person. So I would consider maybe adding a few categories or just being realistic, because you don't want your budget to feel super, super restrictive, but you do need a balance, right? Like we don't want it to be super blown out and have tons of huge categories, but there needs to be a good balance, and it might take you a few months to get there. So I left it the way that it is, but again, I think that there needs to maybe be some edits here. So for total variable expenses, that was $560, and that leaves her with $19.20 remaining. Again, great amount of money left, and I think that there could be some wiggle room in maybe making some adjustments here if needed. So for sinking funds, she had 2 main sinking funds. She had a travel for $400 a month and a gifts for $100 a month. I went ahead and added 3 more. I added a car sinking fund, a home sinking fund, and an emergency fund sinking fund. Now, again, she does have savings already. So just finding a way to slowly start building up the emergency fund in this way while we're still paying off debt. But I think the travel and gifts are fine. Travel seems a little bit high, but again, she may have like a travel planned or something. So maybe at some points or another that could drop down. And then I went ahead and added, like I said, a car sinking fund for $100 a month, a home sinking fund for $100 a month, and then I put $200 a month into the emergency fund to start building that up. Now, again, clearly she does own a car and a home, and I think that anyone who owns a car and a home, you should be setting aside some money for maintenance on those things, because as we know, as our cars and homes get older, there will be maintenance that will be required. So I would definitely recommend these two categories being added. And then, like I said, she only has about $5,000 in savings right now, so I would recommend starting to slowly beef that up a little bit, to be at least like 1 to 2 months of expenses. Typically, you're pretty close there, but I'm assuming that some of that $5,000 is probably in some sinking fund type categories as well. So definitely adding a little bit here. So that brings our total sinking funds to $900 and the total remaining to $1,020. Now, again, this may be a little bit inflated because I think that there might need to be some work here on the variables, and then I also know we need to be adding in these minimums here. So based on these two categories, like this will probably drop down, but it's still a really good amount to be able to put towards the debts that we have. So we only have, $12,000 worth of debt. So if we're able to put an extra $1,000 a month, like you can be debt free pretty quickly, and then you'll be able to focus on some of your other financial goals, like building up your emergency fund or saving for other things like a future car purchase, or even saving more for retirement. So Heather, I think overall you're in a really good spot. You have a great income. You do have relatively low expenses, but I think let's make sure they're realistic, and let's also give ourselves permission to have a little bit more flexibility. I think that it's okay in your situation. You're in a relatively good financial situation, in my opinion. You do have some debt, but I think that with the amount of money that you're making and bringing in, you could clear that relatively quickly. And again, like I said, she does have some side hustle opportunities available to her. So again, I would definitely put all of that side hustle income to this debt to get that cleared out as quickly as possible. That is all I have to share for Heather's budget review. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. As always, please leave comments in the comments down below. I am always feeling super educated by you guys in the comments. Like, you guys always have so many really good insights and comments for all of these individuals who are sharing their budgets. So please leave comments. Give advice to Heather, keep it positive, give her some support. And again, Heather, you're doing a great job. I can't wait to hear back from you about how this goes in the future. Please feel free to check in with me in the future on Instagram or send me an email. I would love to hear from you and see how things are going in the next few months. And that is all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys on Friday for Debt Free Friday. Bye guys.